Most people are terrified about what dying looks like, and I don't blame them. They often think that it's going to be full of panic and fear and weird breathing. And I can tell you right now that I've been at dozens of bedsides, and the experience and what I see is the exact opposite to a degree. So, if you're new here, my name is Death Doula Beth, and in this video, I'm going to share what a good death actually looks like and how to know if someone's at peace, even when the body is doing something that is unexpected. And stick around because I'll share with you the exact signs I look for when families ask me, are they suffering? You might be surprised. So, you ready? All right. So, what do I mean by a good death? Well, a good death means that we're not avoiding death itself, that we're meeting it with dignity and support. And what we try to do for the dying person is make sure that they're physically comfortable, that they are feeling emotionally held, and that their religious and spiritual boundaries are respected. Because the last thing that you want to do is having a not religious person being prayed over. Don't do it. Speaking from experience. So if they haven't expressed it clearly before they went unconscious, go with how they were when they were alive and lucid. Okay? Okay. So another indicator that someone is going to have a good death is that there's clear communication, there's meaningful connections, and this results in less regrets. When we communicate clearly with the people that we love, what our wishes are, what we do want, what we don't want, it makes it so that there is such a more peaceful feeling that we're honoring this person's wishes rather than, is this what they want? So do yourself a favor and have the uncomfortable conversations now, right now. Now, another thing that I qualify as a good death is that we're allowing them to die. Yes, you heard me correctly. We're not rushing the process. We're not resisting the process. We're allowing them to die because it's a natural part of this process of life. Now, when we allow our people to die, we also create an environment that is calm and peaceful. There's no drama, there's no chaos, and there's no resisting or grabbing on and holding on tight. So that's the last thing that we need. And another thing that I constitute as a good death is that our caregivers feel supported as well. What I mean by that is that there is a constant flow of volunteers, loved ones that are already okayed to come into the room and sit there with our dying person, that the caregiver isn't left with 50 people at one time, no people at another time, and just left guessing with what's going to happen. Listen, we need to support our caregivers. And if you're a caregiver, I see you, I love you, and I'm sending you all kinds of good juju. But if you want to support the caregiver, because they're doing things behind the scenes that you don't want to do, that you don't know about that they're doing, and they're just so overwhelmed that they're not taking care of themselves. So here are some best things that you can do to help support the caregivers, which we'll go into another video. But one, show up when you say you're going to show up. Two, tell them specifically what you want to do to help them. And three, do the things that you're going to do. And what I mean by saying what you're going to help with specifically, say, I'm going to come in during my time of, this Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. I'm going to bring dinner so that you can go have dinner, take a shower, take a few minutes, go shopping, just be out of this area so that you can take some time for yourself. Okay, so we're going to think of it like we're supporting a new mother. So now that we've established what a good death is, in my eyes at least, what does this actually look like when someone is actually in their final hours? Let me tell you what I see when I know that someone is in the actively dying phase. Now, your hospice team may also be sharing this information with you. They may label it as imminent death, which is always so jarring to hear. But just know that this is part of the process. And I know it's medical, but again, death doulas are here to bridge the gap from medical world to emotional and spiritual worlds. So we're here to kind of buffer and help with that. But here's what I see, and here's what I notice when someone is at end of life and actively dying. So they're going to be unresponsive and unconscious. They're not going to know what's going on. They may not be responding as well. And you're going to notice that their breathing is changing. This is where I see people panic the most. They start questioning, is our person comfortable? Oh no, why does it sound like that? Now, this is all part of the normal process of dying. This is called agonal breathing. Agonal breathing is basically a fancy word that says they're taking long pauses between their breaths and giving you a heart attack in the process. Now, what I notice the most is people are intently watching their person pause and then breathe. And I see them breathe with them. So when I see that happening, I just remind them to breathe and focus on our breath. How can we be here to center ourselves? I know what's happening here is not typically seen, but let's stay focused on how can we regulate our breathing? How can we regulate what we need? And how can we advocate for our own personal grounding? And the other things that you might see when it comes to actively dying can be jarring as well. Like their skin changes. There's something that happens called mottling. And mottling happens on the extremities, on the hands and on the feet and legs. This is because the blood flow is not flowing like it used to. Okay. It's going to look like leopard skin. It's going to look blotchy. You might even notice that there is a purple or bluish tint to their skin. Again, this is all really normal. We think of it like the body is shutting down from external to internal. Systematically, our bodies shut down. And so our skin will change and our physical appearance will change as well. Now, on top of that, you might notice that their eyes might be slightly open or open. They might appear glossy or unfocused. And again, that's all normal. Their jaw might be open. Their face just kind of looks like flaccid. They're not swallowing anymore. They're not blinking. They're just unresponsive all around. They may not respond to you when you call their name or touch them or hold their hand. And that's, again, all part of the process. This is all normal. What I do know is that they still can hear you because hearing is the last sense to go. Now, there's other physical things that I'll see, like their hands are curled up in weird positions sometimes, or they'll be on their chest. And you may also notice that their feet are turned inward or their body might be skewed just a little bit. But I notice that the energy is starting to shift inward, not only on the physical sense, but also in the spiritual and the energetics. They're not engaging much with the room because there's a lot going on inside. And this may look really concerning to you, especially if you're not familiar with this, which is why I'm talking about it. But this is the body's natural way of letting go. But what makes all the difference in how this moment feels is how much we know about how the body's wisdom is taking over. Because our bodies know how to die. Now, death is not a singular experience. Our bodies go through changes leading up to that moment. You can think of it like giving birth to a baby. A woman's body will have physical changes slightly during that time before the actual birth. And even during the birthing process, while there are major changes, it's slow changes, sometimes fast changes. That's how death is like as well, because we are laboring into this world. We're laboring out of this world. Because the body knows how to die, it also knows that it doesn't need to eat as much or drink as much, and that it also is not going to eliminate as much, or the elimination is going to be different in color and texture and smell. This is all a part of the shift. And the reason why we want our people dehydrated is because if you put liquid in our bodies, what happens is the liquid will build up around the organs and create a lot more uncomfortability than the person should have. So it's not a failure that they're not eating or drinking or doing the things that they used to. It's actually our intelligence that our bodies are just taking care of ourselves. Now, there's something that you don't see happening that does happen. Our brains release chemicals into our systems so that we feel calm and we feel peaceful. Now, TV and movies all share this big dramatic scene, or you get to talk to your person and they have their last word. It's not like that in real life. It's not a dramatic fight. There's no last words most of the time, and it's often a gentle release from my experience. And I'll tell you what, when people are feeling supported, now, I'll tell you what, if people are feeling supported and not medically overwhelmed, the process is far more peaceful. Now, because hospice team and death doulas are well versed in this area, sometimes we'll say things and it just feels like we're not retaining it. And that's normal because this is a high stress situation and we get it. And that's why it's important to talk about these things more often so that we're not shocked at end of life when these changes are occurring. Now, if you've been in this situation or you're thinking to yourself, well, that's cool that the body's doing its thing. What am I supposed to do? So let's talk about what actually will create peace during this time. And this is how you can help support the dying person to have a more peaceful death. Hopefully they've talked about these things before they've went unconscious, but just know that this across the board helps alleviate some of the tension and stress and chaoticness that can happen during end of life, especially if you're finding yourself in a hospital room. And so the first and foremost thing that you want to do is reduce all the stimulation, dim the lights, speak softly, and avoid unnecessary touch unless it brings comfort. Some people who are dying will express some pain when they're touched because of their ailment or their disease. So it just helps to notice what their face is saying. Because the hearing is the last thing to go, some of things that you can share in that room and speak in love in that room is just telling them how much they meant to you. Share memories. Tell them that it's okay to let go and that they're not alone, that you're sitting with them and that you'll be okay, even though you may not be. You can play some music or some grounding sounds, such as rain or birds or favorite songs or prayers or soft music. So think about how they were when they were alive. Bring that into this moment. And if they like to have a party, let them have a party. So, real quick, funny story. My first client is a death doula. She had all her friends there. They had a crab feast. Were watching movies. They were laughing. There was a ton of people there. And she died in the middle of all that. And they look over at her and they're like, oh, she's gone. But here's the thing, that's what she wanted. Okay. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And if you don't know, just go with calm, gentle sounds that you know that they would like. So another thing that you can do to support your person is incorporate scents into this whole experience, such as lavender oil diffusers or incense if it's allowed where you are and if they like it. So another way that you can support your person is through some light energy work, such as Reiki, breath work, and even end-of-life massaging. You can create rituals such as lighting candles, saying prayers, saying a blessing, or just sitting in presence. You don't necessarily need to say anything. Just being there with your presence is enough. And I'll tell you what my kindergarten teacher told me. Not every moment needs to be filled with words. Now, let's get to the question that I hear the most. How do I know that they're not in pain? Let me walk you through what I look for when looking at someone who's actively dying. So, first and foremost, breathing patterns are not a sign that they're in pain. Moaning is not a sign that they're in pain. Now, where I look for when they're in pain is in their face and in their body. You can think of them like a baby, like a newborn baby. They can't tell you anything, but you can read it on their face, and they even have different sounds as far as their cries. Moms, you know that. The hungry cry, the bored cry, or the I'm sleepy cry. Same thing with our actively dying person. They're going to have a furrowed brow. They might have a clenched jaw. They might be picking at things, flinching. They just might not be settled in. They might be retching around. If you notice any of these things, they are in pain, talk to the hospice nurse, talk to the doctor. They need medication. But if their face is soft and relaxed, I call them easy eyes because their eyes are just so easy. Like there's no flinching, there's no pressure, there's no furrowness. It's easy eyes, open jaw, and a restful body. I know that they're at peace. Their whole energy is going to be relaxed. Now, I mentioned moaning a little bit earlier, and this is what I mean. If it's rhythmic, like you hear it when they exhale, just simply means that their air from their airways is going over their vocal cords and everything is just relaxed. And if it's a rhythmic moan, meaning it's only coming out during the exhale, that's when we know it's not a painful moan. Now, if it's coming out tight or tense and it's coupled with some tension or some wincing, that's when we know that our person is in pain. Again, hospice and doctors know what the medications are to help alleviate that. Now, I know that the breathing is going to be freaking us out sometimes. Now, the thing is, when it starts to get all gurgly, and they call it the death rattle, okay? That's terminal secretion. So our saliva is going into our throat and it's kind of hanging out back there. The doctors have medicines that they can give to our people to help alleviate that. So that is something to keep in mind. But my families and my loved ones need to hear this so clearly. Just because it looks or sounds different doesn't mean that it's painful. I know this part is really hard, and I totally get that. And I always tell my clients, if we're calm, they're calm. We mirror each other even in these sacred moments. I know death can feel scary, but it doesn't have to be scary. The more that we talk about it, the more that we understand it, the less scary it's going to be because it's not unknown anymore. It can even be beautiful and peaceful. And I say this because I have seen it and I have lived it. I used to be terrified of death. I know, it's crazy. And here I am, a death doula. And I want people to experience this in that way as well, that it's not some scary thing, that it's a normal part of the human process. So if you're wanting to feel more grounded and confident around death, I created a conscious death checklist that I go through with each of my private clients. You only get that if you sign up for my newsletter. The link is below. And if you need more personalized support, I do offer one-on-one calls to get some clarity around that. So you're going to die someday. Let's just make sure it's in love and not fear. So that's all for now. See you in the next one. Bye for now.